Imagine you live in Gloucester, you have recently lost your job and your health care. You may now need rental assistance. Your child needs to register for kindergarten and she needs to see a dentist. This scenario requires a number of different resources, but how do you begin to look for help? A new collaboration with the Sawyer Free Library and Wellspring House offers one site for all these resources. We are talking to Jenny Benedict, Director of the Sawyer Free Library, and Melissa Diamond, Executive Director of Wellspring House, about this new resource, a website called Gloucester Connection. Ladies, thank you so much for creating this. It's such a simple but important idea. It's amazing that it hasn't been done before. So, Jenny, let's start with you. Can you tell us what inspired the site and your collaboration?
Sure. Thank you, Heather. Um, I think we recognize that KPAN has a wide variety of services, but that current information about them wasn't easy to find. And that's true whether you're new to Gloucester or whether you're a longtime resident. So from the library's perspective, it seemed like a really natural fit for us to gather and organize that information into an online platform where it's just readily accessible to everyone. And we were very delighted to find community partners who also saw this as a priority for the community. And in particular, Wellspring House, Action Inc., Gloucester Housing, and Gloucester Public Schools came together and formed a core committee as we started to work on this.
Mm. And did you identify need and work out from there? Did you start with the organization, just lists of organizations? Because it's very well organized on the site.
Well, one of the things that helped to inspire this project is Wellspring and the library were doing strategic planning around the similar time in 2019. And as part of each of us doing that work, we came together and did a number of focus groups with parents in Gloucester, and we ran them in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. And the focus of those conversations was largely literacy, education, workforce development, employment, because those are some of the things that our two organizations work on together. And what we learned from people is they really love living in Gloucester. They find that it's a beautiful community, a very supportive community once you know people, and that it is a difficult community to kind of break into, to get started, whether someone's new to the US, which is a whole nother element, or just new to the area, or even in like a new stage of life, so some of what you just described, someone finds themselves in a circumstance they've never been in before, and now they have to go in a direction they've never gone. And one of the wonderful things about Gloucester is how familial it is, how well people know each other, how well people collaborate. I mean, I've been inspired so many times in this community when different people and organizations have come together on someone's behalf, but you have to know people in order for that to happen. And so we really wanted to have an easy place where people can start, the one-stop place where you at least have access to lots of different pieces all in that same location. It doesn't mean that it's all the information there is to know about something, but at least it's there's a wide breadth. You're going to get introduced to your starting places across the board. And around the same time that those conversations were happening with the library and Wellspring, the number of families in the public schools who are coming from other countries, the number of parents and kids who speak another primary language besides English, that increase was happening very rapidly in the schools. And so they were having similar concerns and questions of parents showing up and the schools themselves not really knowing for sure where to direct people. So the site is as much for someone who's looking for information for themselves as it is for someone who's in a helper role.
And it is available in multiple languages, right?
Right. Jenny, do you want to speak to that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the site has a drop-down menu with over 100 languages, which I know we don't have that many here in Gloucester, but it certainly recognizes that in Gloucester we have generations of people who have settled here, and they've come from Italy and Brazil and Honduras and Guatemala and Afghanistan and Syria and Egypt. So all of those languages are represented. And the drop-down function, it translates the whole site. So it's not just part of the site, it's the entire site then turns into that language. And I'm also hoping that this feature is a plugin that's very relatively easy to install on a website. So I'm starting to see other community organizations are actually embedding this in their sites as well. So that way we can truly become a multilingual community.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I think it's just for the sake of history. So we had this core group that was convened by the library. The library technically hosts the site. They've covered the cost of developing the site, and that Wellspring, we've done a fair amount of the work of coordinating and recruiting community organizations to be a part of it. And at the same time, as Jenny said, the Housing Authority and Action and the schools have been right along with us this whole time through the site's development. It's been really important to have multiple organizations' point of view. And now that it's launching, I think one important distinction is it's not a static product. It's designed to be changeable. So organizations make their own profile. They're responsible for updating that profile. They have total control over the content about themselves. And so if there are any organizations that are saying to themselves, how did I not know about this? It's because it's launching now and we want you to come aboard, and that's how it's designed. It's intended for new information to be modified and added all the time.
And I assume there's a place on the site for an organization to approach you and say,
correct,
we would like to connect with you.
Yeah, and they would either reach out to the library or to Wellspring, and either one of those entry points works. Yeah.
Well, just for the sake of explaining to people a little bit better, even though we're going to have the site shown on this interview, just break it down into the different categories that you cover.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So there are 6 general categories: basic needs, public schools and youth programs, adult education and job training, housing, transportation, and health and wellness. So the site, you can go into each of those 6 big categories and find the organizations listed within them. There's also a search bar feature. So you can search by the population that's served, by a subservice category, by the organization itself, and by keywords. So there are just many ways to get into the information that's held in the site.
That's great. Well, I will tell you that when the pandemic began, Corey and I were really working hard to try to reach out to different community organizations and resources and help people, guide people to these things. And it was overwhelming for us, to understand who was offering what services, and the services were changing as the pandemic moved along. So, this is really just such a valuable resource for the community. So thank you so much. Anything else you'd like people to know about?
I think mainly if a group wants to be included, by all means, and we encourage organizations to have a link to their site. And again, it's not intended to be everything someone needs to know about the schools, but from there you can get basic information and then get into the website of any of the schools, for example, or even same thing with Wellspring. We're not going to have information about absolutely every program activity at Wellspring. We'll have a basic description, and then if you want more information, you would link on through. So, and we really hope people will use it. The more people will use it, the higher up on the search it will be. And our goal is to have this really be a primary first point of entry for information for really anyone in the community. And tell us what people should tell us what they think. There's always room to keep improving it. So.
I would just like to add that I'd like to give a shout out to Social Capital Inc., who actually built the site. So they've worked in communities in the greater Boston area, Woburn and Lynn, and they help to foster civic engagement, youth success, and healthy communities by helping communities develop the tools and the skills to do something like gloucesterconnection.org.
All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies, and thanks for making this happen.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Jenny.
Heather.